If you've ever experienced a glitch in the Matrix, or have another creepy story you'd like to send my way, just go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And of course, thank you. I have a weird story that I wanted to share because it was bizarre and legitimately gave me the chills. I have a dog that is my baby. She's a German Shepherd, and her name is Bailey. She's been my baby for her whole life, and she's going on 6 this year. She's always been a fantastic dog, and I love her dearly. She's the kind of dog that is at the front door waiting for me every single day. So, on one sunny afternoon a couple of weeks ago, I decided to take her to this park near my place. Now, it's not a dog park, and it's definitely not one of those parks where you're supposed to let your dogs off the leash. But it's typically pretty empty and, well, she needs her exercise. So, we get to the park, I go to one of the side areas where there's no one else, and I let Bailey off her leash so that she could run around. Typically, she'll do a quick circle around the fields and then walk back to me. And from there, we walk around and play fetch and such. And that's what happened on this visit. I unclipped her, and she took off. She did a couple of laps and then ran back to me looking up expectantly. I got her ball out of my backpack, and as soon as she saw it, she sat down next to me and looked forward with her bright and excited stare. We do a bit of back and forth. I toss the ball, Bailey runs and gets it and brings it right back, and then sits down to do it all again. After about 5 minutes of this, I toss the ball across the field and she darts off. And as I'm watching her, my attention is pulled away by someone shouting, "Excuse me, sir?" I turn away from watching her run after the ball, and immediately see a police officer walking towards me. My heart sank, and my initial thought was, great, there goes my afternoon. I'd actually been cited at this park before, and while nothing really came of it, I couldn't imagine that a second citation would be good. Again, this wasn't an off-leash park, and here I was letting her run aimlessly. Much to my relief, he smiled warmly and gave me a friendly wave. So, I assumed the worst I would get was just a warning, which was fine. Most cops there that saw dogs wouldn't really care, but some were jerks. He approached closer and said, "That's a gorgeous dog. A German Shepherd?" I grinned and responded with, "Yeah, purebred. I've had her since she was just a pup." As I made this comment, Bailey trotted back to me with the ball in her mouth, and when I reached down to grab it, she laid down, which told me that she needed a short break. I patted her, told her she was a good girl, and started telling the officer that she was the daughter of my mom's 2 shepherds. But when I turned and looked up to where the officer was standing less than 5 seconds prior, he was gone. He'd completely disappeared, as if he had never been there at all. I stood up abruptly and scanned the area in disbelief. Maybe he got a call on the radio that I hadn't heard or something? But when I turned to look around, I was surprised to see that the park was completely devoid of any and all human presence, other than myself. It was as if the officer had been swallowed up by the earth itself. Either that, or he was the Flash and took off without me realizing it. When I noticed he had disappeared, I seriously started to feel a cold, massive chill down my spine. Tingling sensations in my hand. It was as if the officer walked up, I had responded to him, and then he just ceased to exist. Strangely enough, as I was getting hit with this anxiety, Bailey seemed to be feeling the same thing, as she sat up and seemed like she was starting to feel uncomfortable. I don't know if that was just her picking up on how I was feeling, or if she had sensed the situation, but she seemed like she was starting to feel the same as I was. Deciding it was time to just go ahead and leave, I clipped Bailey's leash back on and headed for the car. For some reason, being out there just felt strange after that. Like whatever had just happened wasn't supposed to, and I wasn't supposed to notice it. It was seriously unsettling, and almost felt like it shouldn't have been. Like, yeah, it was weird and a bit creepy, but it was such a simple event that was causing me so much intense anxiety. But that was what happened. I never saw the officer again, and we still go every other few days. I don't know if I hallucinated the officer or something like that, though if I did, that was one hell of a hallucination. I honestly think this was some really strange and messed up glitch that I experienced. A simple event that just really messed with me after the fact. Hey Raven, I've been watching for a few weeks now, and after listening to a few of the Glitch in the Matrix stories, I can't forget a weird experience that I had and never shared. My living situation is weird. I usually sleep at my partner's house, and they live about 15 minutes outside of town, so I have a short drive through the town that I've lived in my whole life every night. In December of 2021, my dad caught COVID and unfortunately passed away. It was a very hard time for my family, and everything changed so fast. It felt like my life was flipped upside down. On what would have been my dad's 55th birthday, April of 2022, I remember all day thinking about him and wishing I could have seen him and talked to him one more time before he passed. He was one of my best friends, and he was a major inspiration to me. Anyways, I was on my way to my partner's house when I saw my dad's car drive the opposite way past me. He drove a lifted green Jeep Cherokee. That thing was his baby. He loved that car so much. Unfortunately, I had crashed it and totaled it a few years prior to him passing. When I saw the car, I immediately turned and ripped a U-turn. I drove criminal speeds to catch up to the Jeep. When I finally got behind it, I saw a cigar get ashed out of the window. My dad was always smoking cigars if he wasn't sleeping on the couch. I quickly drove to get on the right side of his car, and I saw my dad driving, smiling so big but not looking over at me. I rolled my window down to try to get his attention, but I couldn't. It was like he was completely unaware that I was right there trying to wave him down. I went through a roller coaster of emotions, all within a few seconds. All I wanted for months was to see my dad one last time. I went to look back at him again after checking the road, and there was no car by me. I pulled over to try and process what the hell had just happened. After sitting in my car and looking at my dad's Instagram, I just cried for a while before getting back on the road and driving to my partner's house. I've seen people who resemble my dad a few times and had to do double takes, but this was 100% him. I only told my partner after, which I received some strange looks. I've wondered if a different timeline where my dad is still alive collided with ours. Or maybe it was a ghost. I have no idea, but I've never been very into ghosts or anything. I like to think there's a logical explanation for most things, but I have no explanation. I don't know if anyone will believe this, but I know what I saw. And thank you for sharing people's experiences. On August 28th, 2021, right after 12 a.m., I was in a horrible motorcycle crash. Things get blurry, but I think I was meant to die. Or did. I ended up going to a big motorcycle event with some coworkers, as I worked in the industry of bikes then. I left the place, and it's in a city. I'm a bit unfamiliar with the area. Some pretense. Leading up to this, I kept seeing the number 666 everywhere. Obviously, you say this to someone and you sound crazy. My best friend, let's call her Tay, was riding with me prior, and we saw multiple license plates, including a semi, with the 3-digit plate 666. It was enough for her to be like, okay, that's weird. Well, back to that night. I was going home, feeling good and enjoying my G310 after its first service. Things just went black. It's odd. One second you're here, and the next I was consciousness in like a black void. More like a bubble. It felt like I was floating, almost like in water, but no resistance. I felt true peace. I can't even put it into words. Imagine you have the best sleep ever, but times literally 1,000. I heard distant screams from a woman, and felt like time passed almost, and then sirens from far. Then sirens and walkie-talkies closer. Much closer. During this time, it was like I had very little knowledge, or couldn't talk. Just like what happened, but almost like I was a tiny child with no concept of the world or anything. All of a sudden, it feels like my life was tied to a freaking A-10 jet by a really long string, and it flew over and ripped me back to life at 1,000,000 miles an hour. The movies get it eerily right, put things together eventually, and they hit me with adrenaline in my thigh. It caused a massive boil-like blood sac thing that popped in the hospital. Well, I broke my pelvis straight in half and my wrist. Before surgery, I was in and out of consciousness. The only dreams I could remember, I walked into this giant beautiful forest, but it was more like a garden. It was my ex there, naked in a huge hot spring. She was, yeah, but damn, she was hot. Except it wasn't her. And she had black eyes and a very not normal voice. It said to me, "You know who I am? Do you know how I look?" This was followed up by another dream where I enter the forest and garden again, and I remember it saying, "Welcome back." All this trips me out more because once I was out of the hospital weeks later, and trying to put things together, I found the intersection online. There's a pizza joint there, and on Google Maps it's there with a sign that has 666 in the phone number. The intersection was 666 South Word Avenue. The area had some crazy Satan Latin gang there. It all just blows my mind. The dreams messed me up, but then more so after I put the pieces together. Add in seeing this number prior, I also found a picture of my mileage. I took one right before I left the event, because I was at 1,111 miles. I might be cursed, on the devil's hit list, or maybe just his bastard. The OP added an edit. For clarification, I became conscious on the ground when they hit me with the adrenaline pen. Also, the time between the crash and the surgery was days. The OR there was always in use, because people love to shoot each other here, and I managed to be close to one of the trauma hospitals when going down. For anyone wondering, PTSD has plagued me since the crash, and oftentimes that's how some of the memories come back. One of the most scarring times was at work months later, when going back to my job in the motorcycle industry, and a bike was getting moved. It looked like it was falling over on me. It wasn't, just a weird angle when I was on the knees getting its VIN. And the memory of seeing the car door inches from my face, yeah, it was bad. It came flooding back. It does get intense. I appreciate the comments and thoughts already. Seriously. Edit 2. I didn't think many people would comment, but genuinely thank you. This thing that happened to me wasn't easy, and people don't exactly understand that it's like, dude, I think I died. Also, to put more info on the crash, the SUV hit a left turn in front of me. I don't remember seeing it until the PTSD kind of came rushing in. I only remember seeing the white door in front of me inches away when that came flooding back. I also had a memory come rushing back, but I'm not sure. I hit the SUV at 30 plus miles per hour and was thrown into the air. I get a flash of my hand, well, with my riding gloves on, extended out and my face pointing towards the ground right before impact. I honestly don't know if that's my mind trying to understand what happened, or a genuine memory. It would line up with people on the scene saying that I flew stupid high in the air, and that everyone who went up to me thought I was dead. My helmet, the mouth area was so smashed, the vent piece broke off, and it literally doesn't feel solid in that area. When you grab that part, it feels just like crushing sand. When I came ripped back to life, or whatever happened, I was face down. Oddly enough, the most similar death scene that felt like a close representation was in the anime Tokyo Ghoul, where he basically gets in that accident in episode 1 and is just floating. It's eerily similar, to be honest. Hi, Raven. I've recently become interested in Glitch in the Matrix stories, and I found your channel. First, I want to thank you for sharing these stories, as they aren't dramatized like others I've found online. I would also like to share that I'm not sure if my story counts as a glitch, but I have to admit that it was really weird. So, this happened around 13 years ago, when I was still in high school. My mom had picked me up from school and we decided to buy a rotisserie chicken at a nearby restaurant, and then make rice at home. Let me clarify that we've been to this restaurant various times, especially during this period which felt that we went at least once a month. Anyways, we drove to the restaurant and looked for parking. Before we found a space, we noticed that it wasn't there. We laughed at the fact that we couldn't see it, and drove around again as the restaurant was on a busy street, and we didn't want to cause traffic. When we came back around, we parked and looked again. Just like before, it wasn't there. We ended up doing this around 3 times, until we decided, okay, I guess it's closed down, let's go home. I decided to Google the restaurant to see what happened. When I did this, Google showed that the restaurant was still there, and it was open. At this point, my mom and I were very confused, but still laughing, so we used Google Maps to drive to a restaurant we knew like the back of our hand. To our surprise, this time the restaurant was not only there, but it was extremely busy, with people coming in and out of it. My mom and I parked and just laughed, commenting on how blind we are. To this day, we still tell people, and everyone laughs, as this restaurant is very popular, and people wonder how we didn't see it. But recently I started to think that maybe we didn't miss it. What if it really wasn't there? What if we somehow drove to another dimension or something? What if we had driven home? Would we go back to a reality that wasn't our own? I mean, at least I didn't experience this glitch alone. I have a lot of incredible stories, and I shared this on Kinetic Symphony's platform, and my husband convinced me to send it to you as well. Shout out to Kinetic. I practice shamanism and sorcery, as crazy as that sounds. I've always explained my experiences as a result of being broken via child abuse, and that's somehow creating the perfect circumstances for magic to flourish. However, as much as it seems unlikely, I'm science-minded, and I always test things using the scientific method. This story is one experience that I've yet to find a meaning to, which clearly has meaning. At some point in high school around sophomore year, I was in my angsty goth phase. I still am, and wanted nothing to do with anything that didn't align with that aesthetically. My dad used to host an auction at our family reunions for funding, and would often travel to New York to get unique items for the family to auction over. We'd hit a rough patch, and he was trying to make up for it when he came home from a trip by allowing me to first pick out of the jewelry he had purchased. I went and had a look, and was mostly disinterested, as it was all gaudy and not my style. He sent me back, and I remember selecting a Tupac chain to give to a boy I liked, who was a fan, and a Surf's Up, the movie, bracelet. He sent me back down as my selection wasn't sufficient enough for him. I begrudgingly looked again and picked out a gaudy necklace that I still have, and it has grown on me. There were a lot of replica jewelry pieces. Just as I had seen every piece, I reach down and find a necklace that doesn't fit in. It's a necklace with a bunch of small skull heads as beads, and a larger wooden skull, hand-carved as the amulet. Obviously, it was right up my alley. It had a strange carving on the back that resembled an upside-down wishbone, and had a distinct, smoky, sweet smell. I wore it every single day. I even cut the string and extended it, as it was initially a bit too small for my neck. As I wore it, strange things would happen. It seemed as if anything negative I would say would come to fruition. It happened enough to be past a coincidence, and other peers took notice. There are a lot of stories about those instances, but to save time, I'll tell the most crucial one. I was on the school bus home, and a bunch of kids were teasing me and calling me a witch. One of my friends who was younger was an atheist who defended me against the mob of kids. He asked me to tell them something that would happen to him, so I could get everyone off of my back. The assumption was that I would make an outlandish and specific prediction, it wouldn't happen, and I would then have proved that I was not a witch. I told him that he would get off the bus and trip down the steps from his show places and bust his leg on the pavement. I was strategically specific. As the ride went on, we had forgotten our conversations, being fickle teens. His stop came up. He turned to say goodbye to me, and then turned to walk down the steps of the bus. He tripped. He fell. He busted his leg. As he bent down in pain, he looked at me through the bus window. He pointed at me with terror in his eyes and screamed, "Witch!" It felt like everything was frozen, and I began to contemplate the dangers of this new power. Flash forward, it's summertime and I'm with my dad and his Christian family at Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. A young cousin around 7 is with us, and as we walk by a case designated to ancient indigenous and African relics, he tugs me and starts freaking out. I'm slightly annoyed, but I oblige as he pulls me closer to the display. In the case at this museum is the very same necklace I was wearing around my neck. It was being called an ancient healing necklace, but that's BS. I could not believe it. I felt like I was going to faint. Then, I decided not to alert the adults or staff, as they may assume that I had stolen it. It was exactly the same. Two necklaces in the case showed the front and the back of the necklace, which even bore the same wishbone-like sigil. I regret not alerting the staff because imagine the publicity it would have gotten. My dad never remembered purchasing the necklace. That would mean that my dad went to New York and received a necklace unbeknownst to him at some random time, gave it to me in Bristol, Tennessee, and then half a year later we happened to be at Ripley's at just the right time to encounter it on display, as they changed their displays at random. So, do you think magic could be a gift of controlling glitches? Now, this happened about 45 years ago, but my memory of it is clear like it happened months ago. I was living in Oceanside, California. On the main road from the back gate of Camp Pendleton to downtown, there is a sharp left curve. It's more like a left turn that only becomes a left turn as you continue to the road on the right. One day as I was going around the curve, I hit a slick spot, and my rear end slipped to the right. I overcorrected it, and it started slipping to the left, and I ended up facing the wrong way. The strange part is, I know it only took a couple of seconds, but it seemed to last around 15 seconds. I was in the right lane and there was another car in the left lane. Not only did I not hit that car, I don't know how I didn't, but at one point it seemed like I could reach left to adjust his rear view mirror. I would have to be a passenger in the car to do that. Another time, I was riding my bicycle down the road going around a left bend. I was going pretty fast, but 1 second I was riding with no problems, and then a split second later, I was kneeling on the side of the bicycle as it slid down the road. I had no memory of going from riding to sliding. Then, one more. I was riding my motorcycle and was pulling into my driveway. There were some wet leaves, which are very slick. 1 second I was pulling into the driveway, and a split second later I was standing next to my motorcycle, and it was on its side. I had no memory going from riding to standing. My clothes were dry, so I didn't fall down and stand up. I didn't fall. It was like in the movie Red, where Bruce Willis opened the car door as the car was sliding and stepped out, and was just standing there while the car kept sliding. I have 3 different stories. Let me start by saying hello YouTube and hello Raven. Your stories from other people, real or not, answer a lot of questions that I've had over the years, and I'm very thankful. Keep up the good work. By the way, this is a really cool looking website. Thank you, I try. First anomaly is when I'm at my grandma's house. She needed to move furniture, but I was messing around with the trailer, so she sent me to my room. Before that, I had my sweatshirt on, but it was the middle of the summer, so I took it off and set it outside. I go inside and take off my sweatshirt to set it down, not realizing that I literally should not even have it on. We pack some wood and crap up and head out, but I forgot my sweatshirt. So, I look all over the yard just to find nothing. I look upstairs 15 minutes later to find it, as I'm confused, so I let my mom know. She did acknowledge me, but I could tell that she wasn't paying too much attention. The second anomaly, and the weirdest, I was bored in school, so I decided to take a nap. I was about to drift into sleep, out of that half-awake, half-asleep state. But I suddenly, for I'd like to say about 1/4 of a second, was in this clear-as-day scene. I daydream a lot, and I have this certain looking position where I tilt my head to the left or right about 35 degrees and stare blankly. It's funny because I did this, but I didn't notice I was staring at a girl. She got shy and blushed, and I noticed, and I thought it was funny because she probably thought I liked her. By the way, I didn't. Anyways, like I was saying, while I was daydreaming, I had this odd instance where I knew it was real, but I knew it was a dream of sorts. I'm religious, but I also do believe in rebirth system and alternate universes as well. I don't know how to describe this other than a future of me dying. You see, I was 29. I don't know how, but I just knew I was that age. I was in an airplane bathroom hanging from something, and I see this woman in there with me, which I'll assume is my future girlfriend. If you want to know how I know that, it's because this girl I was friends with looked identical to some older version of her, but she had a crush on me. But I was with another girl at the time, so that went nowhere. By the way, I was 12, and I'm now 14 and a half. She confessed, but she already liked somebody else because my dumb arse didn't get the 57 different hints from her, and her friend constantly gave me. Well, I'll try to keep the rest of the story short. The quote-unquote vision was me and my not-so-future girlfriend in the airplane. I was probably doing something not very PG, I'll assume, but the plane was crashing and she just mouthed, "Bye," and I died. It was really odd because only 3 periods later, after I had that freaking out in class, some kids gave me questioning stares for a while. Angela, the girl, then confessed, and I was dumbfounded because I realized how stupid I was for not getting the hints. So, long story short, I should have died at age 29, in an airplane 15 years from now, heading into what I can only guess is an ocean due to my thalassophobia. To anyone who doesn't know, that's the fear of the great deep ocean, and or bodies of water where you can't see the bottom or surrounding liquid. And my birthmark is right where my lungs are. Creepy. The third and last story, or glitch, is when I was in kindergarten and I fell asleep. This happened once, and I don't feel real. I know I'm living, but part of me thinks that I'm sleeping still somehow, and my senses and consciousness formed this world that I'm in. For all I know, everyone else in the world could be a mindless robot filled in with memories to keep me from finding out this universe's secrets. Fourth, and yes, I know I said 3 stories, but I lied. Last one. This was while I was in sleep paralysis, which, if you don't know, is when you're awake but you can't move or speak, and you have to just live it out. I was in a pitch black room for, I could only describe as an entire lifetime, and I suddenly felt intense pain in my stomach, like I'd been stabbed and cut open. I woke up for real, and then I decided to go back to sleep. When I woke up, since I was sleeping in my mother's room because we had just gotten a cat for the first time, she screamed to look in the mirror, and when I did, I saw about 14 long scratches all over my chest from the cat. I just said, "Huh, that makes sense, I guess," and went on with my day. It wasn't bad enough for a doctor's visit or anything, but it still took 2 to 3 weeks to heal completely. Thank you if Raven does approve this for a video. I did. And I hope everyone else wakes up too. Well, here we are, Mr. Pilgrim, trapped in the amber of this moment. There is no why. And that was this week's collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories, a collection of strange, weird, bizarre, and maybe awkward. Awkward's not a good adjective to use there, but we're going to go ahead and use it anyways, because why not? Stories that I do weekly, every Monday. Please do not ask for more. You will not get them. I do them every Monday, and that's it, because they would get so stale if I did them multiple times a week. I promise you that. But irrelevant. What's relevant is these were some good stories, fantastic glitch stories, and hopefully you all enjoyed them, as these were a bit different. Some of them were, at least. And some of them were different from what I normally do, and hopefully that's okay by you. If not, well, I'm sorry. Try again next week whenever I do more on Monday. Anyways, if you enjoyed the stories, consider hitting that thumbs up button, as again, I do these every Monday. Sometimes Tuesday instead of Monday if the week gets away from me or something happens over the weekend. That prevents me from being able to get this done early. You can also subscribe to the channel if you like these stories and other stories. Stories that are supernatural or not supernatural. I do both. I do stories that are more human-based. I do stories that are paranormal. I do the weird, the strange, the bizarre, the creepy, all that stuff. Diversity, that's what we push here whenever it comes to topics and stories. You can also join Patreon memberships where you get early access to content like this, depending on how you sign up and what you sign up for. You get other stuff as well. The membership gets you the, what are they called? Emojis. The emojis I've made for the channel on comments and live streams, which happen every Friday night. Possibly more this month, we'll see. And Patreon, you can get a bunch of other stuff. There are more tiers on Patreon, including a $10 tier and up, which gets you a poster. An As the Raven Dreams poster. If you don't like posters, you can always message me and we can work something else out, like merch, like a t-shirt or something, if that's more your style. It just requires that you talk to me and we figure something out. You can also super thanks, which is a tip to the channel, which is never expected but always appreciated. And I'm not floundering, I promise. We're going to get there, which there being the word of the week. Hey, look, we're here. On the word of the week, I give you all a word. You then take said word and use that word in a sentence back at me. Last week, your words of the week rejuvenated me, haha. And a number of you used that word in a sentence. On the screen now and several minutes before now are the screenshots of all the comments I got with the word rejuvenate. So thank you to each and every single one of you for providing said rejuvenation, for enhancing my spirits, for allowing me to feel better about what I do. And because you commented, my video got pushed harder in the algorithm, but that's not quite as fun to talk about. Anyways, this week, we're going to start off with a spooky word. Because, hey, guys, it's October. This week, the word of the week is apparition. A-P-P-A-R-I-T-I-O-N, which means unusual or unexpected sight phenomenon, such as a strange apparition in the sky, a ghostly figure, like reportedly seeing a ghostly apparition, or the act of becoming visible, which is like an apparition of sunlight through the window, which is not a definition I knew for this word. You can also use the word apparitional. I'm not going to give you the definition. You have to look it up yourself. Yeah. All that said, friends, I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I hope you have a great week, and I hope I do see you again here very soon. It's October, so you're going to see me a lot. But of course, remember, until then, you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you're the best you that you can be. Do not forget it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And until next time, much love, and sleep well.